Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Communities of Character podcast, the show where we dive into the remarkable stories of individuals, schools, and leaders who exemplify positive character. I'm your host, Jennifer Hogan, and today's episode is a special one. I'm sharing segments of previous interviews with two incredible women whose stories are not only inspiring, but a testament to the transformative power of character. Liz Huntley, a powerhouse advocate, attorney, and author, and Scarlett Lewis, a courageous mom and founder of the Choose Love movement, have faced adversity head-on and emerged not only as survivors, but as beacons of hope and change.
I was born into a home where my parents were drug dealers, and we went through lots of traumatic things throughout our childhood. Me and my siblings did, and ultimately my mom committed suicide. My dad was in and out of jail, and I was sexually abused, spent time in foster homes. I mean, just quite a traumatic childhood. But there was also a nice light in that childhood, and it was called my school. And in my school, there were educators that loved me, that encouraged me, that instilled such great work ethic and character values in me to shape me into who I am today, in spite of those things that were going on in my home, which is why the climate, the culture, what's going on in the building, in a school, the relationships that are being developed that serve those children mean everything to me.
Liz Huntley once said, "There's no one-size-fits-all answer to overcoming challenges. It's about finding the strength within you." And I would love to hear and for you to share with our listeners what makes you feel inspired and feel like your best self.
Oh my gosh, I don't know that I ever feel like my best self, but I can say, when you feel like something you did that day made a difference for somebody, that's always my best self. I mean, I'm happiest when you walk away from, whether it's me speaking or working with the Hope team or even working directly with the school or directly with kids for that matter, since I have my own little book club of girls that grew up in my community that I grew up in. But that satisfaction of knowing, you being on this earth made a difference for somebody today, you know, um,
Mm-hmm.
that's my rush, right? That's my
Yeah,
drug. Is what motivates me the most, and that's where I do feel like my best self.
well, that is a great feeling to get to help somebody else. And for our listeners who are just getting to know you, you really are a resilient and driven and motivated person. And, you're also an encourager. You uplift people around you. And you have a great story about your personal encourager, your Wonder Woman. I was wondering if you would share with our listeners a little bit about your personal Wonder Woman.
Yeah, if you could see my face now, you'd see me smiling. Whenever her name is mentioned, it always is accompanied by a smile on my face. Because I had an incredible experience in an early childhood center that was a faith-based preschool that was made available free of charge in my community, and had the opportunity to attend that kindergarten school, and it was a wonderful culture of character as well. Lots of lots of caring, but also lots of pushing for excellence and building of resilience. But when I went to first grade, it was, during the early stages of integration, and my grandmother just put me on a bus and sent me to school. And I was 6 years old, and
Mhm.
I get to school and I have to, because I could read from that preschool training, I was able to read the signs on the wall to navigate my way into my first grade classroom. And I didn't know what to expect. I remember just sitting there, sitting in the front desk, because the ladies at the preschool told me don't nothing good happened in the back of the classroom. So I sat in the front desk, and I'm just sitting there waiting for school. And eventually the teacher catches me out of the corner of my eye, and she comes to me, and she asked me what was my name, and I just blurted out what my grandmother had told me about registering myself for school. And she paused and realized that I was sitting there by myself at 6 years old on the first day of school. And so she could have done a lot of things in that moment, right? I mean, she could have called child services. She could have, been biased towards me as one of those children, right? Not just racial bias, but just bias against me for, the personal experiences that I was having at that time, and sized me up in a certain category. But instead, she assessed that situation and decided that my glass was half full, not half empty. I mean,
Mm.
she saw a brave kid. She saw a resilient kid. She saw a pretty smart kid. And with all of that, with tears in her eyes, I'll never forget this. She looked me in my face and said, "Elizabeth Humphrey, you're going to be the brightest student I ever have."
Mm.
And those words are stuck with me today. When I repeat them every time I speak, it's like I'm hearing them for the first time. It's just one of those things you never forget. And of course, because preschool had been such a positive experience, I thought, well, if I do smart stuff for her, she'll love on me like the kindergarten teachers did. And I did. And I mean, and she is my Wonder Woman to this day. I mean, you talk about the reading initiative going on in Alabama. Well, that woman, I left out of her room reading on a fourth and fifth grade level. And everybody in my class left reading on grade level from her room because it was such a caring environment. She had such a way within that room to have us feeling like we were part of a family, bringing out the best in us, building resilience, when we struggled, and pushing for excellence, and insisting that we all were respectful to one another and empathetic, and all of those things sort of wrapped up in one in a classroom. Sometimes teachers say, well, I really want us to do Hope Institute in our school. I'll talk to teachers about it. And it's really something your leader has to be on board to do, or it's really difficult to do it school wide. But I always remind them, you could have a classroom of character. Especially for those teachers that are K through maybe 5, where they have the same group of kids all day in a classroom. What an incredible way to make that impact, to learn about how you can do those things and implement them into the way in which you carry on in your classroom. I know Miss Pam Jones certainly did. And that lady's loving on me to this day because when I gave birth to my second child, she was at my house keeping my first child. And even when I gave birth to that little caboose surprise by my late in life surprise child, she was the first person there to hold him in the nursery. So she was then and always will be my Wonder Woman.
What do you wish your younger self knew about your current role? What would you go back and tell your younger self?
Oh my goodness. You would think I would know the answer to this question. Um, I think, on a professional level, because there's really two parts to us, right? There's sort of the professional person that, people see that you engage with. And then there's really that personal person.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, on a personal level, I would tell myself that uh, you will experience uh, a life with a beautiful family
Mm-hmm.
someday. Because when you're a child who's experienced so much trauma, you just wonder if that's in the cards for you, right? And I've been so blessed with 3 amazing kids and an amazing husband who's an educator. I love him so much. I married him, uh, and that's really one of those things that, as a young person in my circumstance, just couldn't even wrap my mind around that level of normalcy within a family
Mm-hmm.
unit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's a personal thing. But on a more professional level, I would have told myself that, because let me tell you this, I had a plan when I got to college at Auburn that it was going to be a clean slate for Liz Huntley, or it was Humphrey
Mm-hmm.
at the time, that all this stuff that had gone on in my house, in my community, and all those traumas, that I was putting those things behind me, and I would be Liz Humphrey, at Auburn, college student, and do my thing. And I did. And I nobody really knew my story. Even the guy I was dating in college didn't really know the depth, of my
Mm-hmm.
story. And I had some adults from my hometown that were hosting a big Say No to Drugs rally for the state of Alabama. And this was during the time when that initiative was really big and you were seeing all these rallies. And they asked me to come and speak to the young people across the state, to talk about the impact of drug use, on your family unit as a whole. So really from the perspective of being a victim of it, right? Of drug abuse. And as I started talking, and I thought I was going to be able to articulate that in a way and just sort of lay out where I am now, stuff just came out, literally, Jennifer. I mean, I started sharing the abuse and all of those things that happened and how grateful I was and how this person helped me and that person helped me and this person helped me at this stage, most of which were educators. And when I got done, I remember looking in the back of the room and Mr. and Mrs. Watts, that was the couple that had asked me to come and speak at this event, they were crying because they had no idea that all those things had happened. It was like an out-of-body experience. Wow. I mean, I just remember just starting to share this stuff. My boyfriend at the time was looking at me with his eyes as big as saucers, like, what? He had no idea all those things had happened. And the teens, I mean, there was a ton of them, a couple hundred kids. They gave me a standing ovation, and so many of them came up and shared their own truths with me afterwards. And I realized that what I thought in my human natural mind was a badge of shame was actually a badge of honor, of honoring what God can do in a life. And that my story needed to be told, not pushed under a rug and hidden as if it never happened. And that was a pivotal moment for me. And I think if I were to talk to my younger self, it would be, don't be ashamed. You celebrate these victories every time you take another step forward towards the goals that you have for your life. And you will get there, and you will then be able to use that story to help others, others in both ways, others in young people that are on their own journey, struggling on where they're headed and what they want to be, and the adults around them that can make a difference to support them, to help them get there. And so I would definitely tell my younger self that, this is a beautiful story. Don't be ashamed.
So I founded the Choose Love movement 10 years ago. I can't believe that I'm saying that now. Following the Sandy Hook school shooting, where my 6-year-old son was murdered in his first grade classroom alongside 19 of his classmates and 6 educators in one of the worst mass shootings in U.S. history.
And then there's Scarlett Lewis, who in the face of unimaginable tragedy chose to respond with love. Scarlett believes that cultivating a culture of compassion is the key to preventing violence and creating a more harmonious world.
I thought about the shooter, who was a recent graduate of the same school system. In fact, he had gone to that elementary school and his mother had taught there. And I thought that if he had been able to give and receive nurturing, healing love, I mean, if he had been able to love himself, the tragedy would never have happened. People that love themselves, they don't want to cause harm. And so I realized that this would be my mission in life, to number one, to keep kids safe, because what happened at Sandy Hook was 100% preventable, as are all school shootings. As well as to spread Jesse's message of nurturing, healing love, and this incredibly powerful concept that we can actually choose love if we have some essential life skills. The courage actually came from Jesse's incredible courage that day. He actually faced the shooter and saved 9 of his classmates' lives before losing his own. And I talk about that courage age appropriately, of course, because that is the same capacity for courage that we all have. And I'm not talking about facing a shooter. Hopefully none of the listeners to this podcast will ever be even remotely in a similar situation like that. But I'm talking about the courage that it takes to get up out of bed in the morning and put your best foot forward when you don't feel like it. The courage to do the right thing and not the easy thing. The courage to model these character values for your family, and to rise to the occasion and to be the best version of yourself, to be present in conflict and choose love. There's so many ways every single day that we practice courage to tell the truth in some situations. So we start with courage and then move into gratitude. So nurturing means loving kindness and gratitude. And we use gratitude as the great mind shifter because you can only focus on one thought at a time. So when you're ready to shift away from those lower energy thoughts, you can think of something that you're grateful for. And there's always something to be grateful for, although it might take courage to think of something that you're grateful for when things aren't going your way. And then that actually strengthens you. I love that when you practice gratitude, it actually stores up strength to face future difficulty in your life. And that actually strengthens you to consider forgiveness and healing. In Jesse's message of nurturing, healing, love means forgiveness. And actually forgiveness was one of the most healing things that I did for myself, making that choice. And it's kind of interesting that how that was perceived by some people when they found out that we wanted to put that in our formula. Most of the people said, you can't teach kids how to forgive. It's way too lofty a topic. And that's because a lot of adults don't really understand forgiveness. And I didn't either, by the way, when I started this journey. I have learned through practicing it, but it starts with a choice and then ultimately becomes a process. But it is one of the most healing things that you can do. And the person that it benefits is the forgiver. A lot of misconception is that it's a gift that you give somebody who hurt you that doesn't deserve it, when in reality, all the decades of research behind the benefits of forgiveness actually say that it's a gift that you give yourself. And it's a way of overcoming anger. And it is just so good for you. And it brings that locus of control back inside of you where you have confidence and you feel good. And ultimately you have hope. And it's really given me a lot of strength to be able to do that. I did not want to continue to be a victim of Adam Lanza. I did not want him to control my thoughts that impact how I feel, that then impact how I show up in my relationships. And the way that I got my personal power back was to forgive. So really, really important. Of course, it takes courage to forgive when the person who hurt you isn't sorry, doesn't care, or may not know. But until you do, you're carrying some of that around with you, and it is impacting your relationships and the way that you feel. And then the last character value that we focus on in our formula for choosing love is compassion in action. And love literally is compassion in action. Compassion has two components. It's the identifying component, so identifying a need within yourself or someone else, and then the action component, when you actively do something to help ease that need. Of course, that takes tremendous amounts of courage when you are hurting yourself or in pain or even busy and distracted, to step outside of that to help someone else. But when you do, the research shows that you help and heal yourself. So the formula is courage plus gratitude plus forgiveness plus compassion in action equals choosing love. And that is the formula upon which all of our programming is based. You know, I have lived post-traumatic growth, and that is the concept that we are designed as human beings to actually learn from, grow through, and be strengthened by difficulty in our lives. We actually grow through difficulty. Hey, it gets our attention and it forces change, and hopefully you have some skills and tools to make that positive change. And so I've definitely really experienced a lot of post-traumatic growth personally and professionally within the last 10 years. And I have hopefully modeled this for other people so they know that it's possible in their lives as well.
And that brings us to the end of this special episode featuring the remarkable stories of Liz Huntley and Scarlett Lewis. I hope you, our valued listeners, found as much inspiration in their journeys as I did. And if their stories have touched you, remember that the power of resilience, compassion, and choosing love is within each of us. Before we part ways, a heartfelt thank you to Liz and Scarlett for sharing their stories with us. Their courage reverberates beyond these airwaves, leaving a permanent mark on our hearts. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, share, and leave a review. Your support helps us bring you more inspiring stories like these. And as we conclude today's episode, stay inspired, stay resilient, and always choose character. Until next time, this is Jennifer signing off from the Communities of Character podcast.